Good afternoon, everyone. This is Manuel Fernandez here again to continue with part two of our adaptive release lesson. So today I'll be going through the steps without necessarily covering every reason as to why they're useful. I'll just simply cover the way to create adaptive release throughout your course. Um, this Some of the adaptive release will require grades or items that or attempts in those in previous assignments, but they'll be fairly straightforward. So you can always try and follow along with me in your sandbox, or if you don't have a sandbox, you can contact us and we'll work with you. Okay, so I'm going to first go to achievement. One of the first things I wanted to do is create some sort of completion indicator telling students that they have indeed completed the course. So I'm going to click here and select certificate of course completion. All right. Given that a student will have a final exam, I think that might be the best place to put it. So I'm going to click final exam. I already selected the achievement type at the beginning. This could be a description. So this could be whatever you want it to be. I think this is for the instructor's personal use. So I'm going to say achievement item denoting the student has 70% or higher in the total column. I've chosen the total column because it's a fairly straightforward number. I have a lot of columns, so it happens to be like 1,000 points, but we'll touch on that in a moment. So you have multiple options you can choose, but here I'm going to just do grade. So as a grade, I'm going to look for the column that I want to use. I see there's total here. Let's look for, okay, total points 1,000. And I'm going to choose a percentage of greater than or equal to 70. That normally is a passing grade. Click next, select reward. And I'm going to go ahead and say instructor Manuel Fernandez. Click the certificate that you want, and you can make it blue, yellow, or green. I'm going to click blue. I'm also going to indicate like a little flag as a batch image, and I'm going to click save and exit. So that's already indicating complete. So if I go to the final exam, there'll be an achievement item that is adaptively released and has a specific requirement, right? And this description, I guess, it actually shows to your students. So you might want to be careful what exactly you're putting here. I thought it was just for instructors, but no, this is actually part of what would show to your students, I think. So the next step is I have several weekly folders that would be released in due time, and they will have a date, but I feel that the students will not do very well if they don't take their syllabus quiz. So I'm going to make a requirement of the syllabus quiz of having at least one attempt. So let's look for that. Okay, syllabus quiz. The student just needs one attempt, doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna go to adaptive release again, do the same thing. These cannot be copied from one item to another. So this is how you have to manually add each rule. Now, the first and second week, I might be okay with the students just having an adaptive release, but on the third week, we're going to require multiple things. We're going to go ahead and require that the student have the adapt release, the syllabus quiz, if we want. And let's go to adapt release advanced. I'm going to create another rule, and this is the most important rule. Important rule. I'm going to create grade. I'm going to select. I'm sorry. So I'm going to select that the student have completed the first chapters through 2 through 4 questions. I'm going to click that. And I'm going to have them actually require a percentage or a score between, so it's between 70 and 100. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Now we have our rule. So if I go to adapt release advanced, actually I want to change this to an. Interesting. Okay, there's an issue there because it's supposed to be an syllabus quiz and a chapter 2 through 4 practice questions. So this isn't going to work. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to create a rule again. It's going to be your requirement, syllabus quiz. Okay, one attempt. Okay, I guess they have to be the same. They have to be in the same rule in order to work. So I'm going to choose chapter, the homeworks. So this is chapters 2 through 4 assignments, and the score has to be between 70 and 100. Now, if we wanted to get if we wanted to have an alternative, because this is actually the two components combined together. It's the syllabus quiz and the chapters 2 through 4 practice questions, which would be the way I've set up the homework. If I wanted to do an alternative, I could do rule 2 and make that another grade requirement. And then we can look at the quizzes. So the quizzes will be worth slightly more than the the homework. I'm going to choose between 80 and 100%. So now we have 2 different rules, and they'll be the student meets the syllabus quiz, having it taken. They have between a 70 and 100 on the chapters 2 practice homework, and or they have completed the first quiz and they've received between an 80 and 100%. So it's either meet the first 2 or meet the second option. If they don't meet either one, it still won't work. If they meet one option of rule 1 and an option of rule 2, it'll automatically trigger. If it was just rule 1, then nothing would happen. Say they only took the syllabus quiz and they didn't get a 70, between 70 and 100, then rule 1 will still not activate. But if they're working, they took the syllabus quiz and they got the quiz chapters 2 through 4 done early before they even finished the practice questions, and they got a really good grade on it, that would activate the rule, actually. So this is actually an alternative. You don't have to, the adaptive release doesn't have to be super stringent on what things denote that the class has met, that the student has met the goals of the class. So I'm going to go to week 3 again. So yes, so that's week 3. If I wanted to go to week 4, let's create some rules. Go back to adapt to release. Well, let's take a look at reviews because I want to do a review here. Let me see if that's possible. Seems it's not. Okay. I wanted to demonstrate the review option, but I don't think that's possible. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just make a simple group requirement. So I'm going to go adopt a release or adopt a release advanced. I'm going to click submit. My criteria is going to be membership this time. Now I'm going to create 2 week 4 folders. Let's say that the students have self-selected into their own groups. I'm going to go ahead and click this week 4 is going to be group test 1. I'm going to click submit. I'm going to go to, so there's one group. I'm going to go to learning materials again. I'm going to create a folder. I could technically just do a copy the destination folder to learning materials. I'm going to change the name here. So I'm going to make it very clear that this is, so say you had different tracks, like you had a track where students are doing more writing and a track where students are doing more presentation, then this could be the way that you self-select the students between writing groups and presenting groups. So I'm going to click on submit. I'm going to do an adaptive release. I'm going to create a rule, group membership. I'm going to add membership again. Select group 2 and click submit. So nothing has really changed. I mean, they could change. You could have different material in group 1 and different material in group 2. They could be tackling some of the same concepts, but with different subjects and different and maybe a different track. But ultimately, they don't necessarily have to know that what the other students are doing. So see, you have only students in group 1 will see the week 4 group 1 folder. And it's like, that's that the other group does not exist or will not run into them. So for week 5, so I want to do something about the quizzes. So I want to do something about the quizzes that exist, right? I have chapters 5 through 8, and I also have chapters 2 through 4. So these have a point value that the students have to meet. What I'm going to do is go to learning materials and assume that this test feedback actually has good feedback and covers what sort of information you would provide to a student that already did extremely well, 90 to 100. Maybe they missed only a few questions or a couple concepts. And then say, what would you say to a student that got 70 to 90%? And what would you say to a student that got 70% or lower? So I'm going to create an adaptive release. I'm going to require that the student has a quiz participation, a quiz attempt. Let's look at that. Quiz 2 to 4. Percentage between 90 and 100%. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. I'm going to do the same thing for the other 2. Adaptive release. I'm going to select the same quiz. So this will be the feedback only for quizzes for the quiz 2 through 4 of the chapters. So 70 and 89% actually. 70 to 89%. I'm going to click submit. Okay. And then any students lower than for this one, I'm just going to select, instead of a percentage range, I'm just going to click percent less than or equal to 69%. I'm going to choose the quiz 2 through 4 again. I'm going to click submit. And there we have it. We have 3 different feedback options. You actually don't have to say what the range is. You don't want to hurt their feelings. And like this was like a student, for students that did really badly. You don't want to have that as like the title of the document. So this could just be test feedback, and it could be congratulatory tone, or it could be informative tone, or it could be a bit of a chiding tone, like do or study a little more in order to accomplish this. And for documents, for feedback for students that are not performing as well, you could have supplemental material, resources, and tutoring locations here at the university for the subject that they're tackling in your class. So if this is a literature class, then you could be pointing them to the library to do further research, as well as the writing lab. If this was a math class, you could point them to pages of the book, extra homework or assignments that they could complete. This is a programming, like the learning materials are like quote unquote programming information. So this stuff would point them to resources on the web, like how to structure their syntax better, or ask questions and at our website. Those would be alternatives, right? That's one way to meet the needs of the students ahead of time. With the adaptive release rule, it customizes the course for each student depending on their need. So that is a brief example of how to use adaptive release for tailoring your class and meeting the needs of your students however you see fit. It is not the only way to do this. There is the possibility to use, you could create a gamified version of your course by using the adaptive release rules, because it's basically meet this milestone, level up or accomplish an objective like beat the boss or something, and you could gamify your course that way. But in this case, it's just an example of gating content and having certain requirements, and also giving them alternatives. Like, what alternatives can you provide them? So maybe if they don't quiz well, could they do their homework and have something reviewed? Then you can do that as well. So thank you once again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Leave your questions. I'll also be posting some resources down below, so make sure you check that out. And please tell your colleagues that we're doing this every other Wednesday. And see you again. Thank you very much.